Hello there, welcome to another Q&A with me, Clément Young. I'm your host. I think we've been doing these for a while now, and we're just going to do more and more of them. Super popular type of content for us. So stay tuned, subscribe to us if you want to receive more of these kinds of things. This question today is from a user on Quora called Lil Tork, which asks, what can I do to stop sabotaging my relationship? I act up and he's getting tired of it. So let's see if we can answer this question. The first thing I want to start with is, well, we got to get clear on why it's happening. Why are you acting up? And, the thing is, you could be believing what someone else is telling you. Like, for example, I can imagine, and there's been many times that this has happened to me, you're told that you are this or that. It's kind of like maybe gaslighting, or maybe it's true, maybe you really are that way. I think, getting some understanding of where this belief is coming from is essential. So if you're the one who thinks you're sabotaging the relationship, if you're the one who thinks that you're acting up or being unreasonable, then, it's probably likely true. If someone else is telling you that you're being unreasonable, ask them for some clarity. Try and figure it out. Be curious. Exercise those muscles, because I know it hurts to know the truth. I know it hurts to confront your weaknesses. No one likes to kind of be vulnerable when, it's an uncomfortable feeling. But it's the only way we're going to get to understand what it is that we're actually going through, what it is that we need to focus on, what we need to fix. If we need to fix anything, right? Maybe it's not us, maybe it's them, which is why I ask, where is this coming from? Is it coming from you or is it coming from them? Is it gaslighting or is it real? And sometimes, I think it can be difficult in a relationship with two people to really conclude and be very confident in that conclusion, because there's so many emotions flying around, right? And there's so many kind of like, I'm right, you're wrong situations. It's hard to be able to tell what the reality is sometimes, especially if you're very agreeable as a person. I mentioned this in the last Q&A that I did, that agreeable people generally tend to just put up with things and avoid confrontations, which isn't healthy. It leads to a life of submission. And we want to be able to speak our truths. We want to be able to, show up 100% ourselves. Can't do that if you're always trying to avoid confrontation. So get a little bit of courage and start to uncover, with the help of your partner and possibly even with the help of someone else. I do recommend getting, like a third party, having some kind of counselor or therapist present, to really be an umpire almost, right? So that you can work through your problems with an outside influence that isn't somehow corrupted by the relationship. What's missing? Is there anything missing from the relationship? Usually, if you act up, it's a lot of the times it's because there's a need that isn't being met. Is the need healthy? Is it unhealthy? What are the needs that aren't being met in a relationship? Maybe what you can do is you can list down all the things that are important to you in a relationship, right? And then you can list down all the things that the relationship at the moment is providing, and see what matches up. So you could say things that the relationship's good for, things that the relationship is not good for, and then have a look at that list and try and balance it out, because until we really clarify where the gaps are in our situations, whether it's in a private relationship, personal relationship, or whether it's in a work environment or in a career or anything in our lives, when we get clear on what's missing from each different aspect of our life, we can then figure out what we need to work on and how to make up for those things and how to fill those things. So list them down, Does it still look like something you want to have once you've done that? Now you're being honest with yourself. You look at the kind of comparison side by side of the pros and cons. What's lacking? Is there a way to continue? I suppose you have a few choices there, don't you? You can stick around and try and make things work and try and reconcile with your partner and move ahead, or you can leave and look for someone else, which is what a lot of people do, and I think it's done a lot more often than necessary. Or you can leave and you can work on yourself. I think the last one is the least common one, but it's actually many times the most important one, because if we don't work on establishing where we're going wrong and what our patterns of behavior are that are perhaps toxic or leading to failed relationships, then we can never really work on them and overcome them. So giving yourself some space and time outside of a relationship is really helpful for that. In fact, it's probably the only way you're going to be able to overcome those nagging problems that are following you around. So I would highly recommend that you be very cautious when it comes to deciding what you want to do next, because it could be the difference between having the most amazing relationship and also having another failed relationship and wasting time, not just your time, but their time as well. And then also being disheartened. Being disheartened from failed relationships is terrible because it kind of bleeds through into your next one. And it can also jade you from wanting to have another relationship. So if you have, too many situations where you keep hitting your head against the wall because you haven't spent enough time trying to figure out what's actually happening and how to address it, then you might end up being just not very motivated to actually get into another relationship or be committed anyway. What are maybe some other reasons why this is happening? Maybe you're trying to shoehorn your partner into being someone that they're not. And when you act up, it's really just because you're frustrated with the fact that you actually want your partner to be someone they're not. And that's understandable. That happens. I've experienced that, but it's unfair. And I think it happens sometimes because when you get into a relationship with someone, they are on their best behavior, you're on your best behavior, everything is magical. But then once the curtain is lifted and that person relaxes themselves around you, then they might not actually be exactly the same person. In fact, they're usually not exactly the same person that you thought you were getting to know. That's just a typical honeymoon phase. So again, this is something that perhaps you're trying to make your partner fit a reality that doesn't exist anymore or never actually existed in the first place. What else? Maybe you're looking to them to fulfill the needs that only you can satisfy for yourself. Needs that, like, for example, have been created by childhood traumas or past traumas that have created these toxic belief patterns. I'm talking about things like maybe you were neglected as a child. Maybe you were physically or sexually abused as a child. Maybe the relationship you had with your mother was incredibly volatile. Maybe you felt like you were unworthy. Maybe you were told that you were unworthy. Maybe you told that you were told that you weren't capable enough. And so all of these, when we're developing as children, as we grow up, everything about the way we perceive life at a young age, and I heard this from someone the other day, I can't remember who it was that told me, but basically we're very vocal when we're younger because our brains are still developing, so we don't have more of the complex adult nuances to perception and comprehension, which are beyond language. When we're younger, it's mostly very like literal language, and we need to be very careful around our children, because when we say things that we don't mean, or we're trying to insinuate something, they'll take it literally. So maybe that happened a lot. Maybe you had an alcoholic father or a neglectful mother, and you grew up with that deficit, and it has somehow created a belief pattern that you're not enough. So maybe you always look for ways to solidify that identity. And we do this a lot in our lives. We need our identity to match we need our reality to match the identity we have for ourselves. Otherwise, things don't make sense. We need, as humans, things to make sense. So if you believe that you're incapable, you won't really ever try to do things usually just by autopilot. You won't usually try to do things that require competence, because you don't think you're already competent. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but essentially we're fulfilling our own prophecy of what we believe we are on an autopilot mechanism, and we need to be able to consciously break free of that by doing the things that I'm just telling you right now, which is to list down the things that you think are happening in your situation, and try to be as unbiased as possible. It's difficult to be unbiased if you're the only one doing it, which is why talking about it is essential, and not just talking about it with the other person, but getting a third party in to give you some kind of triangulation where there's a unbiased element which can help to manage and guide the conversation in a logical way. Because as I said many times before, and as I said earlier, it's very difficult to come to a productive conclusion and view of the situation when you're dealing with two people who are perhaps compromised by toxic belief patterns, and they're just mashing their heads against each other over and over and over again. So we have to inject some impartial energy into that situation, which would be the third party, which would be a friend that you trust, or a therapist or a counselor, or somebody, a stranger even. So once you've done that, once you've figured out like, okay, these are the reasons why maybe I'm sabotaging my relationship, pretty confident that's the list there. These are the good things about the relationship that I have with this person. These are the bad things. Not just objectively, like they hit me, right? That would be an objectively bad thing. But it could be subjective too, to you, because it's important to you. Everyone's different. You have your own needs and wants, and other people have different ones. So maybe you need someone who is able to give you space and freedom, so that you can spend time with your friends, or you can go away on vacation by yourself. Maybe that's really important to you. Maybe this person is, in actual fact, quite tyrannical and oppressive. Maybe they always want to know what you're doing, where you are. That's a subjectively bad thing for you. So list them out. Once you've got that, once you've figured out maybe where your own patterns and behaviors may or may not be lending to this situation that you're in, or if it was something that you kind of took on from them because you were very agreeable and you believed them when they say that you're causing problems and you're just a nag and you're just difficult to be around and you're always making big things out of small things, then you can start to figure out, well, do these line up with reality? Are these actually really true? And this will paint a picture of the next steps for you. Like I said, maybe you stick around and try to make things work by having an adult conversation and coming up with an action plan that you can both work on. Try to be mindful of like your own weaknesses and biases. Or you can leave and find someone else, or you can leave and spend time with yourself. So again, those are the three options I think that you'd have once you do this exercise. I hope that you do stick around and make things work if it's not a super toxic environment to start with. If, for example, you recognize, oh, I have these old belief patterns from childhood that, have really kind of ruled my life, and I keep bringing them up in relationships. I keep projecting my insecurities on the other person. I get jealous, I get controlling, I become violent. I always want what I want. I feel entitled. These are all things that can be caused by childhood beliefs that have kind of manifested as patterns of behavior. So something to look into to do that would be to look into cognitive behavioral therapy, where you can kind of address the situation, you can get some clarity on it, and then you can reverse engineer the behaviors and break them down and replace them with better ones. So look up, I'll give you some links to look into CBT. And yeah, I wish you the best. I hope this answered your question. It's always a tricky thing, I think, trying to understand, well, what's really causing these issues. But once you put focus and attention on it, you'll always come to an answer, no matter how far away or difficult it might seem. Okay, so great. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in for the next one. We'll see you next time. Bye.